friends, it's Jessica from Three Rivers Homestead, and I'm back to bring you another week on the homestead video. We're going to show you all the fun projects that we were up to this week. You know, I get asked quite frequently why it is that we homestead. Of course, the food is one of the main reasons. It allows us to steward the land that we've been blessed with, steward it well. But one of the things is it's just fun to do things yourself, to live a life of self-sufficiency. And we know that true self-sufficiency is a myth. It's impossible to do it all yourself. Even if we're growing a lot of the food ourselves, we need inputs from outside of the homestead in order to even, get that food growing. So it's not really, complete self-sufficiency, but it's a desire to be more in control of the things that we eat and the things that we do, and to do things homemade. And so that's what I'm going to bring you in this video, are a lot of fun homemade things. We're going to make some bagels ourselves. I'm going to make a calendula oil that is really good for skin and for things like eczema and my baby who's battling cradle cap. We're going to make our own diaper rash cream out of tallow. We're also going to plant our onions. So before we get to any of that fun stuff, speaking of self-sufficiency, I want to thank the sponsors of this video, and that would be Backwoods Home Magazine and their sister magazine, Self-Reliance Magazine. These are wonderful publications if you're someone who's interested in leading a more self-reliant lifestyle, learning how to steward your land well, how to grow your food, how to make things on your own, how to bake from scratch, those kinds of things. Great recipes, tutorials, and the photos are wonderful in these magazines. They give you a lot of step-by-step building instructions and recipe instructions. It's a wonderful publication. I've been a fan of this magazine for over 15 years. It's what helped to stir my desire to homestead way back before we even moved to this property 10 years ago. So if you are interested in picking up a copy of 50% off of a yearly subscription to either of the magazines, check out the link in the video description. If you use my link, you can get 50% off. It's such an amazing deal for a wonderful publication. This is the kind of magazine that you don't throw away. You keep it on your shelf as a reference book to look back at later on. So a lot of good self-reliant ideas in these magazines. And if you'd like some more ideas on some fun projects that you can do on your own, why don't you check out the rest of this video? Let's go ahead and get started. You're going to notice as we're doing our projects today that I have a little helper that is constantly by my side, and it's because it's the only way I can keep her out of trouble lately is to have her attached to my hip. She's having quite the adjustment to having a new baby sister, but as long as she's by my side, she actually is a wonderful helper. So you'll be seeing a lot of little Miss Hannah in this video. The first thing Hannah and I are going to do is work on a calendula oil. These are calendula flowers from last year's garden that I had dried out. Calendula is a beautiful flower. It comes in bright yellow and orange colors. It's extremely fragrant, and the bees absolutely love it. And at the end of every year, I take the flower heads and I dry them and infuse them in oil. So what we're going to do is take last year's dried flowers and get them in a jar, and then I can strain out the oil from the batch that I had did last year, and we can use that oil. So Hannah is helping me fill my little jar here, and we are going to try to pack this jar as tightly as possible. Now you might be wondering, why calendula? What is so special about this flower? Well, this flower has medicinal properties that are amazing for skin. It can heal things like wounds and burns. It's wonderful for skin conditions like eczema, or right now my baby is battling cradle cap, and so that's what we're going to use it for. When my second son David was a baby, he had terrible eczema on his legs. It took us a while to determine that he had a sensitivity to certain soaps and things like that. But before we discovered that, the best thing to help those eczema patches was to rub his legs down with oil that was infused with calendula oil. And now when he was a baby, we didn't have a garden, and so I purchased that oil. And after about a year of purchasing that oil, I realized, you know what, I could save a whole lot of money if I just grew these calendula flowers myself. And so I started doing it maybe 14 years ago, and it's been a staple in our little home, I guess, first aid kit for the children for a long time. So I'm using grapeseed oil today. You saw that I just poured that directly over the dried flowers. Any kind of oil works. I've used olive oil with great success in the past. The only reason I'm using the grapeseed oil is that I have a little bit of it that my midwife had given me for the baby, and so I just decided to go ahead and use that. So we filled up the new jar with the new flowers and oil. I'm just going to label the cap of that with the date so I remember how old this batch was. I have all sorts of infusions happening, infused oils down in the cellar, so I like to kind of label them to make sure I know which is which. And then little Benjamin, who saw that Hannah was being a helper, decided he did not want to be left out. So he hopped up on the counter to help hold my funnel here so I can strain out the old batch of calendula oil. I'm just going to press those flowers down to squeeze out as much oil as possible. And you'll see that what once was kind of a yellowish colored oil has turned orange because a lot of the properties from those orange calendula flowers have infused into the oil, and this is just going to be a wonderful treat for our bodies. So I will say, if you're going to infuse some oil with calendula, this is the type of oil that you're going to want to put on maybe before bed when you're wearing old pajamas, because it does, you can see that it's orange, the oil is orange, and it would stain your clothing if you were going to put that directly on your skin and then put a light colored outfit on top of that. But this is also great for soap making. I've used this infused oil to make a soap before, and it is just wonderful. So this week we went ahead and gave Abby her bath and used our brand new infused calendula oil in order to oil down her scalp. I don't scrape out cradle cap. I just keep it nice and oiled, and then it tends to go away in just a month or so. So Abby was very happy. This week we did a fun baking project as well. I decided to take my 30-minute roll recipe that's right here, and we are going to make some bagels out of this recipe. It's really quick. I love this roll recipe because you can get it done in no time at all. So I'm starting out with 3.5 cups of water, and then I'm going to add my fat. I like to use avocado oil or olive oil, but you could use melted butter, any kind of liquid butter. We're using 1 cup of that. And then I like to add honey. I do a 1/2 cup of honey, and if you add the oil to your measuring cup first and then add the honey, it just slides right out, which is really convenient. You don't have to worry about losing some of that honey in the measuring cup. Then we added 4 tablespoons of yeast, and we're just going to set that aside and let it rest for about 15 minutes. We want to get that yeast activated and nice and bubbly. And once our time was over, we're going to add 3 eggs. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of salt, and then it's time to add our flour. This is a big, large family recipe. We are going to add 10.5 cups of flour, but if you have a smaller family, I would suggest maybe cutting this recipe in half because it is going to make a whole lot of dough. For our family, we can eat up this amount of bread in just a couple of days, but if we had a smaller family, this might be overkill, and we might have to freeze half of the bread products that we made. So I put that in my Bosch mixer. I love my Bosch because it's great for large batches like this. When I used to have a KitchenAid, it couldn't handle batches quite this large, but the Bosch does this big batch with no problem at all. We just wanted to let that knead. I let it do about 5 minutes in the mixer, and then I like to take it out and continue to knead it by hand because then you can kind of feel the dough with your own hands and get it to the desired texture that you would like. And when you're making bagels, it is really important that you activate that gluten by kneading the dough really well. That's what's going to help give you that bagel texture inside of the bagel. So there are a lot of different ways that you can shape your bagels. A lot of people like to do it by hand. I find the easiest way to do it is to just use a donut cutter. It cuts them into the same size as a bagel would be, and then I can go back and just kind of stretch the middle hole out a little bit. That helps to leave a hole in the center because as your dough continues to rise, that center hole can close up if you don't have it big enough. But the donut cutter really does help give me a consistent size on these and works out really well.
So what makes a bagel different than any other type of bread? And that's number one, the chewy kind of consistency. It's kind of more dense than a regular bread, but also that really shiny outside of the bagel. And we're going to obtain those results by boiling the dough before we bake it. That's what makes the bagel making process slightly different than other types of bread rolls. If I were using this recipe to make my 30-minute rolls, these would just rise on the counter and then we would put them straight into the oven to bake. But since we're making bagels, we're going to let them rise. I just let the dough rise since this is a quick recipe. We just let them rise for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then we're going to boil them before we put them in the oven. In the meantime, I do have my oven preheated for about 400 degrees because that's what we're going to end up baking these on. As I'm working on my bagels, Mr. Adam is over there fixing a leak under the kitchen sink that was causing us some trouble. So I have some wonderful company to talk to in the kitchen while I'm working on these bagels. So I have about a gallon of water here in my pot, and I'm just going to add about 2 tablespoons of baking soda to the water, and that's going to help our bagels have a wonderful texture. Miss Abby was getting kind of fussy and it was time for nap time. So I'm working on rocking her to sleep. You'll notice that while I am boiling these bagels. So they don't need long. Once you have your water to a rolling boil, they take about 30 seconds on each side. So I just drop in a couple of the bagels, let them boil for about 30, not 30 minutes, 30 seconds. I'm going to let them boil for about 30 seconds on one side, and then I'm going to flip them over, and they'll do 30 seconds on the other side. And then we put them back on our parchment paper here until the whole batch is done. And it's really a pretty simple process. Some people have great results if you add a little bit of honey to your boiling water. That helps give some good flavor to the outside of your bagel. I just omit that since there's already honey in the dough, and we just do the baking soda in our water here. You can see that I was successful in getting Abby to sleep, so we're going to go transfer her to her bed before I give the outsides of these an egg wash. So a lot of people like to top their bagels with a bunch of different things. You know, everything seasoning is really popular. You could do a coarse salt. You could do sesame seeds. You could make them a sweet bagel and do kind of a cinnamon sugar topping. On this day, we're just doing an egg wash, and I'm going to keep these plain so that they're kind of versatile, and we're going to use these for sandwiches and breakfast throughout the coming week. Once they're all egg washed, we're going to put those in the oven on, like I said, it was at 400 degrees, and we're just going to let them bake. They took about 15 to 20 minutes, and then when they're all done, you can see we have beautiful bagels here. They're not the prettiest in the world, but they taste delicious, and they do get the job done. I just want to slice one of these up for you to show you what they look like in the center if you use that 30-minute roll recipe. And I will leave the recipe in the video description for you. I love this because it's just a super fast recipe. We toasted these in the oven. I like to toast them on a baking sheet under the broiler. Since we have so many breads that we're doing at once, it's much easier than using a toaster to do them individually. And for breakfast, the next morning, we had toasted bagels with almond butter and some homemade cherry jam and some eggs. Just a really simple, fun baking project this week. It's also time for me to get my onions in the ground. They've been sitting here waiting for the weather to warm back up a little bit, and I'm ready to plant these. This year I'm doing one bunch here of red Zeppelin onions. These are a wonderful red onion. I also have these red wings that are also a red onion. The rest of these are Patterson onions. Those are my favorite onions for storage, and they work wonderfully. Actually, the onions that I harvested last summer, I have 1.5 bags left right now, and they haven't sprouted yet or gone soft. They held up wonderfully this year, so I highly recommend Patterson onions if you're looking for a good storage variety. I have Levi helping me on this beautiful day. It was sunny out, but still a little chilly early in the morning, so he's in his coat and gloves until we warm up a bit. I like to use a muffin tin to space out my onions. I find that it gives me the perfect spacing of about 3 inches in between my onions, and we just stick one per hole until we get it all done. So these are onion starts that a friend of mine gets for me, and we buy them by the bunch. And it's just a good way to grow onions. I've done it by the sets that you can get at like Tractor Supply. I've tried it by seed, and I get the best results with these little starts, these onion starts. So I got 2 beds that are this size filled before my back started hurting. I'm still pretty weak postpartum, so I have 2 more beds to go, and we're going to work on that here in the coming week. But it felt good to get a couple of those done and get out in the garden. My final project for this week is to work on some diaper cream made out of just these 2 ingredients. I have some home rendered tallow and some zinc oxide powder. That is all you need to make a really healthy diaper cream for your baby. So I'm putting in approximately 1 cup of tallow, and then to that I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of this zinc oxide powder. I bought this bag of zinc oxide powder for maybe $19 on Amazon probably 4 years ago, and I've been using it, and you can see it's barely even half done. So it's such an affordable way to make diaper cream, especially if you have your own beef tallow for free. I just pour a little bit directly into the tallow, and I mix it with a spoon first so that all of the powder kind of absorbs, because eventually we're going to hit this with my immersion blender, and if I start with the immersion blender, that powder is going to fly everywhere, and you don't want to inhale that. That wouldn't be good for you. So get it thoroughly mixed before you use the immersion blender. And that zinc oxide, we want to make sure it's pharmaceutical grade, it's non-nano, it's really good and healthy for baby skin. And the purpose of that zinc, that's what's in commercial diaper creams and sunscreens. It creates a barrier that moisture can't pass. So if your baby has a little bit of a rash, you can put this over it, and then if their diaper gets wet, that wetness won't go directly on the skin, and it helps heal the diaper area as well. And that tallow is all natural. It's really good for your skin. If you're someone like me who cloth diapers, you don't have to worry because this tallow will not destroy your cloth diapers. This is cloth diaper safe. So this is what it looks like. I still have 2 in diapers right now, both Abby and Hannah, so I am happy to have this restocked and put on my changing table for my girls.
Okay, friends, I hope you enjoyed that little peek into our week. We did lots of fun things. I'm so excited that it is spring on the homestead. I just this afternoon sat down and wrote out a list of all of the things that I need to start tackling outdoors. I have a lot of projects that I want to do that will help beautify the outside of our house that I didn't get to tackle last summer because of the pregnancy. So I'm really excited to do some fun landscaping and things. Adam just yesterday went to the feed store to pick up some grass seed for our pasture and came home with 8 fruit trees. So we're going to get busy planting some fruit trees and expanding our orchard. And then, of course, the garden will keep me extremely busy this time of year. I have other fun ideas for homestead projects. We want to build some new chicken tractors to move our birds around more on the homestead to help fertilize the orchard area this summer. I am thinking about maybe doing turkeys this year. We'll see what I have the time and energy for, but I'm hoping to bring you along for all of that. So anyways, I hope you're enjoying beautiful weather, beautiful spring weather wherever you are, and you're busy doing all of the fun things that come along with this time of year. We'll be back next week with another video for you. Until then, friends, I hope your week is blessed. Bye.